Okay. So take it nice and easy, although it's not as chilly today as it has been the last few days. We are getting the colder weather, and just give yourself time to loosen up and to warm up. Don't be in a hurry, and especially those of you who've done this before, it's good to feel that you can progress, and over a period of time you're getting better at something. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it every time. It doesn't mean that you're failing if it doesn't feel quite as good as it maybe did last time, or whatever. The sort of progression in these things, we would like to think of it as a straight line up, but it never is, because we're variable from day to day, and so it can dip a little bit. And maybe you're feeling a bit tired or whatever, and we should be aware of that in our personal practice. So basic stance is to have your feet hip width apart, directly below your hips, and that could be from the inside or the outside. So it's not fixed, but generally speaking, you don't want this, because then you're kind of wobbling around a bit. You don't want this, except for certain specialized exercises, which we mostly don't do in this class. We do a few occasionally, but your legs will get tired if you hold it for too long. Your weight is slightly forwards in your feet, and that angle, I'm exaggerating here. You really want the weight to settle just behind the balls of your feet. You'll still have a slight angle, and you neutralize that by letting your hips drop back. We sit. So you let your body sit in, your upper body sit into your hips and your pelvis sit into the ground. It does feel like you're sitting in a chair. And the other thing you want to be able to do, excuse me a moment, is to be able to get a sense of your whole body in the same way, sort of sitting inwards towards your skeleton, so that overall you feel supported, and that you're not getting into a struggle against the pull of gravity. Everything starts to come in line. So shoulders in line with your hips, for instance. Hips in line with your ankles, knees above the balls of your feet, or maybe a bit further back than that, but no further forward. And the feeling that the soft tissue of your body, particularly the front of your upper body, belly, solar plexus, chest and ribs, are hanging slightly, supported from within, like a mannequin, a dummy in a shop window displaying a garment, so that there's a shape that comes from inside. And then just aware of this area between your hips and your waist, beginning to turn in that area, arms hanging down, feeling quite heavy, being pulled around. A little bit of speed, a little bit of momentum that starts to build up with this exercise. Take a couple of slow, gentle breaths. Just let your breathing come naturally in this and all the exercises. There are breathing patterns, but if you're new to this, then best not to get too caught up with those to begin with. You'll just find it's an extra detail, and your body does know how to breathe. So if you can sort your posture out, then it means that your body will begin to breathe better. Good posture is really an essential element in any kind of art like this, and in any kind of effort for well-being. If the mechanics of your body physically are working against you, then it's much harder to improve anything really. And we don't want to get into a fight with our own bodies. The awareness of your posture and your movement will help you to bring in quietness, calmness to your attention. Your attention will drift away, and we don't want to cut ourselves off from our immediate environment, but it's very easy to find ourselves sort of drifting away and planning what we're doing for the rest of the day and so on and so forth. When you realize that's happened, just bring your attention back to details of the posture and the movement. And again, this is quite normal. Everybody has to deal with this. Try not to get frustrated at yourself if it keeps happening, because it keeps happening to me. And so we bring our attention into our body, and we gradually begin to realize that body and mind overlap. And so an awareness of our movements and intentionality in our movements is as much a part of what we're doing as the actual physical side of the art. A certain rhythm may build up, and it'll be one that your body begins to resonate to. That same rhythm will be present in the slower exercises when we get to them, but usually harder to define. The other thing that we get with these initial exercises is a sense of momentum. Momentum is just a way of describing a particular aspect of the body's energy, a faster aspect. And so between the rhythm and the momentum, we start to feel not so much that we're having to move our arms, but that they're being moved for us. And we want to maintain that feeling as we begin to create shapes with our arms. So now turning your hands palm out and then raise them up. So if I just stop moving, you'll see that my hand is no higher than shoulder height, elbow hanging down, and not sort of a long way from the body, slightly in front of my shoulders, and I'm turning my body. And again, probably for people who are a bit more experienced in this, trying to let the big muscles of your arms and shoulders just relax a little bit. So you start to feel that more of that part of your body, more of your arm, including the bones, begins to be used. And again, I think it's probably a little bit easier to feel how that can work with these more speedy exercises that we do. And then put one foot forwards, keep the width of your step and step about the same distance forwards. Move your weight towards your center turning. So the center is again the area between hips and waist. So now, same kind of idea, except that we've added the transfer of the weight from front to back. So in this we have in a way the full picture. We're told that these movements are rooted in the feet, and again that's that dropping of the center of gravity, which I'll come back to in a moment. Transmitted by our legs, and we can see how, and as we move our weight, there's a transmission from the ground to our hips. Directed, shaped, controlled through the center of the body once again, and expressed in our arms. So these are useful exercises. I always recommend to people that we do them in the morning as a sort of preparation for the day, both mentally and physically. And for people really interested in following up this art and developing it, they contain much of what we're trying to cultivate in the slower movements, as I said earlier, in a slightly more accessible form. Plus, we should never really do any kind of physical activity cold. We talk about the warm-up, and the warm-up is it's slightly misnamed, but temperature is part of it. It's to get the blood flowing a bit more freely, to get the blood flowing into your muscles more freely, and that helps to reduce the risk of injury. And then on the other side, bring in more oxygen, and that helps to sort of keep you alert. So once again, your mind becomes part of this process. Okay, give you a solution. So coming back to the parallel posture, sometimes referred to as the Vucci posture. Try and have your toes pointing forwards. If that's not comfortable for you, you can have your feet a little way turned out, but not too far. You want to get a general feeling that everything's facing the same direction. So toes, knees, the line across your hips, the line across your shoulders, and so on and so forth. Like this means that part of you is looking that way, and your foot's put in that way. So there's bound to be some kind of pull, some kind of tension in the leg. So to develop this feeling of rooting down, of our center of gravity dropping, then the first thing we want to try and do is to let our hips drop back a little bit more. And again, we're sitting, and then push up. So gravity pulls your hips down, and we try not to fight against that. And then at a certain point, we feel the resistance from our legs building, and we go back up again. Sinking down and pushing up. And we, again, try and let that settle into a nice steady rhythm. And every now and then on the sinking down, it's almost as though we're carrying something heavy, and we put it down and we suddenly realize we've been carrying excess weight. The idea is to drop your center of gravity as low down as possible. And that means that we're more stable. The lower your center of gravity, the more stable. And it also means that everywhere above your center of gravity is more likely to release tightness and stiffness. And then bring the hands around, cradling the ball, and push up. And as you push up, let the expansion in your upper body push your elbows out. Turn them over now as though they're resting over the ball. Drop your hips down, and your shoulders follow, and your hands follow your shoulders. So again, rooted in the feet from that lower stance, transmitted through your legs as your legs get a little bit straighter, they don't completely straighten. Controlled by the center of the body because there's no turning here, the center isn't turning, and expressed in your arms. And with that image, maybe, of lifting the ball and pressing it down, bringing your attention and your intention into the movement. For an intentional movement, you want to have a purpose, if at all possible. Quite often the name will give us that, although with this one, it's simply called rooting down. But all of the movements will have particular images associated with them. And we feed those images through our intent. If you felt that slightly deeper sense of the movement in your arms and your shoulders, see if you can recapture that, and maybe feel it elsewhere in your body as well. Expanding and contracting is a good way to think of the way the rhythm builds. Then this time, hands out to your sides. This movement is called the wild goose. So if the image of the bird in flight is useful to you, it may convey a quality. That doesn't really mean much. You could imagine just waving a feather up and down in the air. So you get that sense of the resistance of the air, which we often miss. And another image we use to help build this is moving through water. And that helps to build a quality of movement and a sense of the movement through the whole of our body being more connected. And that in its turn leads to a sense of this feeling of the whole of ourselves involved in any particular movement, and a sense of the flow, the energy beginning to build through our body. And then your hands drop down, cross in front of your belly. One's called Part in the Clouds. A slightly abstract name, but we could relate it to that feeling that we get a really grey day and then the sun comes out. We get a sort of expansive feeling of opening up. Maybe you feel that in your belly, your chest, your back. But don't strain for it. Notice that I'm not locking my arms out. And always returning to the ground, your center, before you push out again. One more time. Letting your arms rest at your sides. I'll show you from the side as I sink down and push up. You see my a bit closer. Really, I go down, my hands are going down and up. So if I just leave my arms here hanging, there's already, because my body's moving, a feeling of movement through my arms, a feeling of energy or flow, momentum, however you care to think about it. It's just whatever's the right label for you to use. And we're going to build on that, and this time sink down. And as you push up, you start with your left hand. Feel that movement upwards, pushing your elbow up. Your elbow then drops down and your hand comes up. Just rotate your arm and then pull down. This is called Dragon Plucks the Stars from the Sky. Extending all the way through that side of your body, through your leg, through your sides, through your ribs, through your arm, in that order. And then just return. Take your time to change from one side or another. This is not a race. And one thing I sometimes think of with this exercise is that this hand comes down, comes all the way, my fingers unwrap, and then my attention pans like a camera going across a landscape from one side to another, and then I'm on the other side. This helps to stop us rushing. We do want to speed up quite naturally. This happens again, in my experience, with pretty much everybody. So we're just looking for ways to slow down our thoughts. We're not trying to stop thinking. We're not trying to sort of like push our thoughts away. Just not being borne along by them. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Do one more of these. Take your time. And just come back to this standing position again. Check your posture. Weight a little bit forwards, hips dropping back. Soften your knees. And check. So those first four exercises all have a very active role for our legs and our hip dips are sinking down and going up. And we can begin to feel the connections to our body from foot to hip to shoulder to hands and so on and so forth. The next two exercises, we don't actively drop our hips and push them up. But what we do, again, I'll come closer, and again, I'll exaggerate a little. When the weight is forwards, hips drop back, and we drop down. So this movement allows a freer flow for the pull of gravity through our body. We cease to resist against the pull of gravity and instead allow the natural strengths and structures of our body to keep us in shape. So when we sink down, it's like dropping down into water. At a certain point, you'll feel the push up. So if I go back to this position here, what I've got now is two movements: the pull of gravity working down through my body, and my body's response, that buoyancy coming up. So whether or not my hips are actively going up and down is secondary to the fact that they're going down a little bit and allowing the pull of gravity. So you still got that movement within your body. We're going to make use of that movement. So bring your hands to your sides. The first movement, you're facing forwards and straight up, hands just a little bit above your head. So you're underneath a low ceiling, and you place the palms of your hands on the ceiling, and your hands are in front of your body. And then they come back down, coming back to the same position they started from. They lift again, but this time push out to the sides. And again, palms of the hands facing out. You notice my hands are slightly in front of my shoulders. They're not pulled back. And at the same time, I'm going to turn my body. So what I'm not doing is twisting my shoulders around. I'm turning the whole of the upper body. Again, turn to the front, come back. And then turn the other way. And here we see how the center of the body really dictates where our arms are going to go. And then back. And then the final move of the set is to push out to the sides. So pushing in four directions, I've called it. So one, push up, your body expands and then contracts. Just bringing your attention back, bringing your hands back to the center of the body. Two, you begin to push out and you turn. Doesn't matter which way you turn first. And again, you come back all the way to the starting position. Three, do the same thing in the other direction. Just aware of the feelings in your back, not straining in your upper body at all, not pulling on the muscles overly, coming back and then pushing up. So the whole of your upper body turns as one unit, not twisting your spine around. So pushing in four directions. One, nice long feeling in your back. And two, now you get a broader feeling in your back. And three, the same thing in the other direction. And four. So that's again that's set into that nice steady flow and rhythm. Notice whether you want to kind of shortcut the movement again, particularly on that returning stage. Take your time. Let the rhythm and the flow of the movement build. Expanding and expanding and contracting. And these should be seen as moving meditations. The rhythm that has this outward movement and then the inward movement. So again, it may be that on the inward movement is the point at which you bring your attention fully back into your body again. Just aware of the areas that may feel a bit stiff or a bit tight. You want to think about your posture and how you're doing with the movement to help that area. Or you may just be patient at the movement itself. Ease those areas. These are sometimes described as internal massages. Final time, pushing out to the sides. And your arms back. Let them drop down again to their full length. And then on one side of your body, the expansion pushes your hand out, elbow is slightly curved. That swings your hand up above the head, just a little above your head if that's comfortable. And then all the way down the center line. Remember, hips sinking back. Soften your knees. The next time, if it's comfortable, we can add a turn in again. You bring your hand into the top position. You turn the opposite way, and then drop your hands down. Excuse me. Now change to the other side. Notice any difference between one side of your body once again and the other. Often the case. Think about that steady rhythm of expansion and contraction. One is called circling palms. I sometimes imagine I'm sliding my hand on the inside of an arched doorway, like you might find in an old church or something. And then if it's comfortable for you, you add the turn. One more time. Good. And then give you an extra shake. The next two exercises are a little bit stronger, but also use the center of the body to direct arms and shoulders and so on. But they do so horizontally. So what we've been doing so far is keeping our pelvis relatively level. If our pelvis is level, there's a better chance that everything above there, including our shoulders, remain level, remain in line with the pull of gravity. The next movement, you should be careful with your knees and careful with your back. I'm going to do the movements quite big, so you can maybe see what I'm doing. But that's not an invitation for you to do it that big. Just move as far as you're comfortable. Try and maintain an attitude of listening to your body. And if your body is saying, no, this is uncomfortable, take note of that. So we start with a sinking down and a pushing up, keeping the pelvis as level as possible. But this time, you deliberately push your hips back, and you see how that sends my shoulders forwards. At the bottom of the movement, I let my hips drop back again, and that very gently brings me to an upright position, and I push up. So 1, I sink down, push the hips back. 2, I let my hips drop back. And 3, I push against the ground gently and push my hips up. 1, 2, and 3. And this time, let your arms begin to follow the movement. This is called rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. So there's a little bit of an extension in your back, but again, particularly for people who've been doing this for a while, see if you can still feel a somewhat deeper quality in the movement. So don't stiffen up in the muscles of your back, trying to keep them with that sort of soft, supple element rather than stiff and hard. And for me, one of the reasons this exercise is such a good one is that it's at this stage, when I come up, I don't strain or pull in my neck or my shoulders. I let my hips drop back and let that bring my head back to the upright position. So again, not get into a fight with gravity. Rowing a boat in the middle of the lake, and then next exercise, using this movement, bring your hands down in front of your hips so they're resting on the table. And what you're going to do is you push your hips back and that slide your hands forwards. You let your hips drop down in the same way as you did before. And then you do that, and you're going to turn horizontally first. So turn in one direction. Push your hips back, turn in the other direction, and let your hips sink down. And then change direction, go the other way. This is called polishing the table. One more in each direction. And again, just let your hands drop down. And shake it. So if we think about those last 4 exercises, pushing in 4 directions onwards, then we begin to see how the center of the body moves our arms. And our arms will always move in a circular pattern, not always a true circle, sometimes just a part of a circle, but in between this movement and that movement, we can create circles in all 3 planes in one way or another. vertical and horizontal. And we can think of the movements, and this is particularly true for Tai Chi forms, but true also for the majority of the exercises. You can begin to feel that the movements are all combinations of those three circles. And this is the center of the circle. So this is a good point of focus for your attention as well. And it encourages us to come home, in a sense, to this part of the body. And that is a really valuable thing. It's not a physical thing as much as it is somewhere to bring your attention to when you're looking for just that moment or two of calmness and stillness, whether it be standing in the supermarket queue or stuck in the traffic jam, or if the boss at work is getting on your nerves, or the kids are playing you up, or something like that. Just finding for a few brief moments, very valuable moments, this sense of the stillness that is very much a feature, strangely, of this art. We're going to change the stance now, as we did in the faster exercises, and go back to this forward stance. So starting with your feet hip width apart again, turn one foot out, and be prepared to play around with this angle. And then you imagine parallel lines going through both feet. And when you step forward with the other foot, is on that line. So don't take a narrow step, because you'll feel as though you're trying to balance on a tightrope. And in terms of length, it's about the same in length as it is for the width. Maybe a little bit longer, but not a long step, but not too short. Because what we're going to do now is begin to just transfer our weight a little bit forwards and backwards. So the movement, the dynamic that I described before, gravity drawing you downwards, if you like, the springiness in your legs pushing you up, is now translated into a horizontal movement. So what you can imagine is, give yourself a moment to settle in this back leg. It will start to push you upwards, but we don't want to go up, and instead the intention is, and this is where our awareness and our intention are really important. It comes up to our leg, through the belly and down into the front foot. And then same thing, same idea, going back. Again, you can imagine doing this in water. Trying as much as possible to maintain the upright stance. And to do that, we need to move from the ground. Keep doing this. Let me just demonstrate something to you. Things to do this with. I'll just grab those. So if I've got this pile of books and I put them on the floor and I decide I want to move them, I'm going to use my foot to move them, and I just push on the top one, then it's the top one that will move, or if it was the second one or something like that, and I wouldn't move the whole pile. This would be like leading with your shoulders, which is a very common habit. On the other hand, if I move the bottom book, it will move the pile out of the way. So it's not that we don't want to use our shoulders. It's not that we don't want to have them involved or anything at some point. But the initial movement should be from the ground, using the legs. This is a very good exercise for legs and knees. The front, when you move your weight forwards, you're going to about 60% of your weight into that leg, and the movement stops just behind the ball of the foot. When you go back, similarly, the movement will stop behind the ball of the foot, but you get maybe a little bit more, 70% of your weight. So from the side, you see I'm trying to maintain this upright stance and thereby keep the pelvis level, as opposed to doing this. This is a part of ordinary walking, but not the only part. But what we do now is you go back, you settle into your back leg, and gently raise the toes of your front leg. So a little bit more of your weight begins to settle down into the back leg. Try not to lean backwards. When you go forwards, you let your back knee go forwards and maybe feel the hip drop and a bit more of your weight goes into the front foot. You can have the front foot slightly turned out now. Slightly turned out. No more than I've got it there. And as you move slowly, more of your weight settles in each supporting leg until the vast majority of your weight is flowing down through one leg at a time. And so at that point, I'll show you here, I just bring my back foot in and push it back out to the same position. Remember going out, put the ball of my foot down, lower my heels, move my weight back. Now raise my toes, more of my weight settles in my back foot. Front foot comes in, I step out, I put the heel down first, and then the toes. Give yourself time to settle before you move the leg. Don't be sort of disturbed by the odd wobble. We're trying to find that sense of rooting down and alignment over one leg. Try that on the other side. So start off in the parallel stance, think of the parallel lines. Turn your other foot out, take the step forwards. This is called the bow stance, by the way, and begin to transfer your weight. That's bow as in bow and arrow, sometimes the archer stance. The supposedly stance that the archers took. I don't know if it's true or not. As much as possible, for our purposes, facing straight forwards. But just be careful. A slight angle isn't a problem. Be careful to try and correct that because it could put pressure on your knee or somewhere in your back. And then once again, beginning to raise your toes and your heel. Front foot can be slightly turned out. You may find yourself sort of tightening up, particularly around your hips when you do that, maybe in your shoulders. And what we're trying to do is to reverse that. We're trying to release, to soften, to relax, if you like, not to tense up. That's quite difficult if you feel that you're going to fall over. So sometimes I do this next to a wall or maybe a table or something like that as a kind of reassurance that if I do start to stumble, it's quite difficult to relax at this point. But if I put my hand on the wall, I know I'm not going to fall. And then I can sort of play around with this idea of relaxing. Build that up slowly and gently. So I think of the wall as acting a bit like the bars in the swimming pool, helping somebody to realize the buoyancy of the water will support them. And again, we have this natural strength, this natural energy in the body that when we give it a chance, will actually support us. Once again, bringing your foot in. Planting the foot is the term that we use. And I think it's a good image. When you plant something, you take care about where you put it. So placing the foot is important. The other thing that you might be able to do, you put the foot down and then gently pressing before you move the weight. So if you're planting a bulb in a garden, you'll be thinking about where do you want the bulb to be. And then when you've got it in the right position, you might dig a hole and then just gently press it down. And then this time, instead of going forwards and backwards, whichever direction is most useful to you, and then bring the foot through so you start to step. You may find that the foot that's turned outwards actually means that you turn slightly, and that helps you to take the step. I'm going to change direction now. So in everyday walking, as I think of it, we do tend to angle forwards. It's a very efficient way of walking. This is not meant to contradict that. I see these as being complementary rather than contradictory. So let's do that again. And this time, just do it as naturally as possible and just observe and to be aware of, to experience the process of walking for its own shape. Something we rarely do, actually. We often walk to somewhere or to do something for a reason. But start off by turning one foot out a little bit, bring the other foot in. Just feel what it's like to plant the foot, to transfer your weight, to feel your body moved by those processes. And again, I'm going to change direction. And then shake out. And again, this is an exercise which is interesting to try. When we've got the wall there, it does give us this sense of confidence in what we're doing. So we're going to use those movements of the legs and our weight now to bring our upper body back more actively into the movement. We'll do two exercises using this. And before we go into them, let me just explain a little bit about them. The first one, I'm going to be facing straight forwards. I'm not turning in the center. Again, a slight angle isn't a problem. Hands at my sides. I move forwards and I pull my arms through. And as I arrive, I let them swing through and then I go back. This is called fisherman cast the net. So my weight moves, my hips move, my shoulders move, my arms follow. So don't do this. It's, again, looking for that sense of the whole body moving as one unit. And we'll do some of these, and then we're going to change into this movement. When I arrive in the back foot, I turn, and so rather than my arms swinging forwards and backwards, they get swung out in a slightly different direction. This is called Wind Blows the Willows. And you can see the principal change there is that change of direction that the center is pointing in. So again, don't do this because you'll just become top heavy. And the test of that will be when we come to here and we take a step. This is called dragonfly skims the water, which you can do. You can either put your toes down, or if you're feeling adventurous, you can raise your foot up, but only if that feels comfortable to you. So have your right foot forwards, mirror my movements, and start with your weight back and fisherman cast the net. So you're moving through water. Through the progression of the movement, foot to knee, to hip, to shoulder, down through your arm, elbow, wrists, and finally your fingers. So you're maybe the air is thicker around you. You'd imagine rolling the carpet out. You know. So a fisherman casting now. Don't hold your fingers or thumb tight. This time go into your back foot and then turn a little bit towards the front. Feel how that changes the direction of the arms. Still that rhythm of expansion and contraction. As wind blows the willows. The willow tree being a significant symbol in these arts with its deep roots, very supple wood. Willow tree is said to bend in the wind, to yield to the wind, not break, it will spring back. Very much akin to the, if you like, the philosophy underlying these arts and the way that is adapted into, say, things like the martial arts, the healing arts. And I think it carries with it this lovely image of the willow tree as well. This time when you go back, raising your toes a little bit, and bring your foot in. Just check your posture here. Step forwards, move forwards, sink into the front leg turn, bring your foot in. And then you bring your foot in, and only if it's comfortable, you raise your leg. Just be aware that that last movement may be the one that sort of throws your pelvis out, which will then make you very wobbly, as you can see. Now, have your other foot forwards, your left foot. Start again with fisherman casting. Remember, try not to lean forwards. This is not about how far your arms move forward. Just let them swing through the arc that they're making. Not straining in your shoulders for that little bit of extra movement. It's not necessary. Not part of the aim, shall we say. And then this time when you go back, turn in. Wind blows the willows. Just open up my front foot a little bit. Stepping in, give yourself a moment just to check your posture. Same thing into your back leg. Maybe with a raising of your foot. Don't struggle. If you're finding that you're stiffening and wobbling around with your arms and your hands and shoulders, then just leave the foot down for the moment. But this time I'm going to step through, and this is the dragonfly skims the water. So it's self-defeating to strain for this. So if you're doing this each time, you'll get more out of it if you do it this way. And then dragonfly skims the water. In the parallel stance, just rubbing your hands together. And with the pads of your fingers, tap lightly over your face. Work up over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, your arm. And on the other side. Once your back. Just the lower part of your back. And around your hips. Next. And you're very light on your belly. Gently to the upper part of your chest. So to finish, we come back to the basic stance with an exercise called Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain, emphasizing this rhythm that brings us back to this sense of being rooted, being centered, that stillness, the calmness, such a feature of the art. So sinking down, pushing up, it starts a bit like the wild goose. Then you let your arms come around as though they're going to hold a ball against your chest. Elbows drop, bringing your hands in, and then you sink down, and everything comes back to the beginning. And don't be in a hurry to move on. When you feel the push up, start the whole cycle over again. Embrace Tiger, return to the mountain. The mountain could be a good image of this final posture, this final state, the state of mind, calm but quite strong, spacious. So it's worth taking note of just how it feels to come back in this way. One more time. And thank you for watching, everybody, joining in. I hope that was useful to you. Enjoy the rest of your day.